the delay with the computer and stuff. My name is Donna Marie Gardner. I'm an MCC grad, like many of you are about to be. And I am actually fortunate enough to now work as a faculty member. My contribution this semester was to go and meet with some of the administrators, Dean Edwards and Dr. Newley, and pretty much say to them, I think within the science curriculum, it's hard. If you want to be a teacher, there's no room, right, for education courses, and maybe some of our students want to be teachers. And so I wanted to look into incorporating some teaching and learning methodologies for our students. And so I asked if we could have some students help me work on a lab manual for genetics and sort of teach them what it's like to be a teacher at this level. And maybe, I'm the third youngest person in my department. Maybe get some young minds to come back and teach with us. So that was sort of my, my goal. And so I'm very proud to introduce to you Anthony Sena and Roy Sepkowski, and they're going to tell you a little bit about their semester with me. So, welcome.
So thank you all for coming to be here today, even though most of you are only here to get extra credit in your classes, but that's okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Roy Sepkowski.
And I'm Anthony Sena.
And we're just going to be sharing our experience with you as RTAs this semester in genetics. That's what I don't like in class. I took Professor Gardner for Bio 1 in the spring of 2012. And so when I found out she was teaching genetics, I was really excited. I knew how awesome she was and what a great teacher she is. And genetics is where I met Anthony for the first time.
And unlike Lori, I met Professor Gardner for the first time in genetics, and immediately I was impressed by the way she taught and her enthusiasm for her subject. And I have wanted to be a professor for many years now, so I thought that it would be a good way to learn from her, and she can help me along on my path. During the semester that I had her, she had mentioned that she wanted a TA to help her in the classroom and things like that, and that gave me an idea. So I went to her after class one day and I asked her if I could possibly be her future TA for the next semester. And after many discussions and deliberations during the summer, we decided that this would work. So we asked people and we finally got the okay. And this semester, I soon became the first genetics TA in Middlesex. And it was something we were both really excited about. Then, once the semester actually started, I came into school and Professor Gardner informed me that Lori would soon be helping us and she would be becoming my co-TA. And that's when I first officially met her. We had class together, but we didn't talk until this semester. And then we went into the classroom where the students were, and it was much like this, or much like this. It was pretty terrifying. And we realized that it was different being in front of the classroom rather than being a part of it.
Yeah, I recall Gardner blindsiding us with a question about advice that we would have for the class, and we were both like, what do you say? And we were really nervous, and it kind of was eye-opening in that regard.
During the semester, we had a lot of different responsibilities, both inside and outside the classroom.
Our weekly responsibilities included tutoring, preparing the lab, and assisting during the lab.
Every week, I would come in an hour before the lab just to set it up and prepare before the students came in. And at first, it was difficult, and I needed a lot of direction from Professor Gardner. But after a couple weeks, I was able to go into the lab myself and just set it up by myself. And it was a learning experience like the rest of it. But by far my favorite responsibility was assisting during the lab itself.
Yeah, both of us attended lab each week, and our responsibilities were basically to, circle around the lab, go from table to table, answer any questions that the students may have had. So we were really Gardner's second pair of eyes in that way.
In addition to our classroom responsibilities, we had a lot of projects that we worked on outside of the class. And the first one being the lab manual that we worked on. me and Lori spent hours researching and trying to perfect these labs so that the students would have better time understanding them. But it took a lot of time, obviously, and we wrote and rewrote and rewrote, and after a while we decided that we should focus more on things that would be beneficial to the students currently, rather than something that will be done in a year. So what I focused on mainly during this semester was making quizzes. I would create their weekly quizzes every week, and I learned the art of making questions, which many of the faculty would know that it's not the easiest thing to do. And I learned how to put in the objectives for each week, and I soon became better at that. And our last project that was very time-consuming was our presentation for the blue-white cloning lab.
So in regards to teaching the blue-white cloning lab, when Professor Gardner first asked me to be her TA, I assumed this would include responsibilities like fetching her coffee, grading her papers, and helping her with the lab manual. But then she threw something at me I didn't expect, teaching. And I came from a family of teachers, so it was kind of always in the back of my mind as something I might want to do, but in the really far off future. So, I'd be older, have more education, and kind of just be more confident in myself. But for her to ask me to teach this semester, I was kind of uncomfortable with the idea. But she asked me to do it, so of course I bit my tongue and said, I'd love to teach a lesson for you, or with you. And it was nerve-wracking at times, but I never felt that I was on my own. She always made time for me and Anthony to come in and share things with us that would help us make a good lesson. We would come to her with a PowerPoint, and she would proceed to rearrange the whole thing. And then we would add information to the PowerPoint, and then she'd remove that information. And in this way, I learned the most about what teachers do. You're harping over every word, every animation, every picture in your PowerPoint. And there's a lot of time and energy put into each lesson. So when the day had come for me to finally teach, I wasn't as nervous as I was the first time she asked me. I felt more prepared, and I was definitely ready to give the presentation. And, as nerves turned into excitement, I powered through the lesson pretty easily. And it was, a lot less stressful than I imagined it to be, and it was one of the best experiences I've had at Middlesex.
I was also originally supposed to be teaching that lesson during the lab, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, I had to put that off. But come next week, I will be teaching a lesson in lecture, so I'll be able to make up for that. After our presentation, Lori and I learned the magic of grading papers. And it wasn't as easy as we previously believed. It was a lot of work, and it took a lot of time. It wasn't just deciding if the answers were right or wrong. It was being able to determine if the students comprehended the material and not just memorize some of it. We also had to look for keywords to make sure that they understood what they were learning. Not to mention the fierce battle of trying to decipher their alien handwriting. But our first time we graded papers, it took us about 4 hours, and we only graded about 12 papers each. And that was with a lot of help from Professor Gardner. It was shockingly long. So if you're a student and you ever find yourself asking the question,
What do you mean you're not done grading our papers?
well, just remember it's not as easy as you might think, just like it wasn't for us.
So here's some advice we have to any future TAs. The first thing is to be organized. This is a really good thing, especially if you're working with somebody that might be on the more disorganized side. It's good to have one person that has all their stuff in order.
And always remember to manage your time well. At first, we didn't realize how much time we would spend doing this, and it is a lot of work. But once we were able to balance our schoolwork and our TA position, it became a lot easier.
Yeah, and also don't sweat it. No one is perfect and nobody expects you to know everything, so don't take yourself too seriously and try to have fun with the experience.
And last but not least, be prepared, because it is a lot of work, but in the end it will be really rewarding. So, Lori, was this experience useful?
Absolutely. It really let me see education through a different lens as the teacher and not just the student. And I realized a lot of things a lot of conceptions I had about teaching were kind of disproved with some of this in a good way. Would you still want to teach now?
Absolutely. I think this experience made me want to teach even more.
Yeah.
Would you consider doing this at a four-year college?
Yeah, I think if it's not for this experience, I'd probably shy away from doing that. But now that I know I can do it, I will definitely do it in the future. And would you do it again?
Absolutely, 100%.
Reasons why we think that you guys should pursue it. It's really good on a college resume. It really gets you to get more involved in the school, which is important, especially at a two-year school. You get to see the same kids every week and you get to know them, and it really builds a good community between the staff and students.
And it's fun.
And it's fun. Number one. Okay, so do you guys have any questions for us?
What skills do students, you said they might look good on the resume, like as students become teaching assistants, how would it benefit in the real world if they graduate from a four-year institution?
I think the most valuable thing you get from this is, as a science major, we don't get to take education classes. So people that want to be teachers, it's mostly content-based. You learn a lot of the science portion of it, but not so much the communication. So I think that this was a way to allow us to try something new for a semester and to learn a different subject, teaching.
And as Professor Gardner has told us many times this semester, any teacher is going to tell you that you learn your craft best when you teach it. So that will be great on the resume just because it'll tell them that you know the material. Anything else?
Yes. You both took the course before you taught it?
Correct.
Yes.
If you had to go back and retake the course, knowing what you do now, would you make any changes in how you approach the course as a student?
Yes. Good question.
I think that I did well in the course, but knowing what I do now, I think I would study a lot more than I did before. I see the time that it takes for Professor Gardner and any teacher to create the material that they're teaching for you. So I think now that I appreciate it from the other side, I would go back and take more time to learn it.
Yeah, I think doing this, it makes you realize that you need to take these things very seriously because it only builds up. I took the course and then somebody might come to me with a question and I realize, oh, I didn't learn it as well as I thought I did. So in the future, I think I'll be, taking these types of classes much more seriously. Make sure that I retain the information and not just memorize it for the test.
That's it?
So on that first day we met the students and Professor Gardner put you on the spot, what did you tell the students?
Study. Yeah, study. I think I told them to write down everything she says and then edit it later.
I told them not to be afraid to come to us with questions, not just about the class, but about outside life situations, because if I didn't do that with Professor Gardner, I wouldn't be in the position I am today.
How was your experience with managing your time between your classes and your TA and studying?
At first, it was difficult for me, especially. I'm not sure how Lori felt with it, but it took a lot of energy of mine, and I noticed that I slacked a little bit in some of my other courses. But after a couple weeks where I started getting used to it, it became much easier, and now I'm doing well in everything I'm in. So
And I just want to mention, it's a different type of work from just having an outside job at, a restaurant or a store, because something that I was surprised by was that mentally it's a lot more on you because you're having to study more than you normally would. Normally when you have your 9-to-5 job or whatever, it's kind of a break from studying. But so that kind of surprised me. It did take me a while to be able to, sit for longer periods of time and go over material more.
You feel mentally exhausted.
Yeah, sometimes, but it's also something, it also taught me to how to be a better student, even more so, to learn how to manage my time that way. Yes?
How long was your approval to become a TA?
Well, at first we didn't know exactly how long it would take. It was sort of up in the air. And thanks to Professor Gardner, because she really pushed for it.
Thanks to Dean Edwards.
And Dean Edwards. It happened within a couple months. I asked Professor Gardner about it in, I believe, May?
Yeah, the end of the semester.
Yeah, the end of the semester. And we got approval for it in mid-August.
And if no other questions, I think
Seriously, thank you very much to Dean Edwards, because he heard me. We had gone to the meeting, and I really wanted to make some type of program, get some type of interaction where students could interact as a teacher, as a science teacher. And originally when I walked out of the meeting, it was a great meeting, don't get me wrong, but at our school, money, we have to be careful where we spend our money, and there were other things that we needed. And when I had said, oh, I want to do some, have some students work as teaching assistants, and he was like, well, that's a great idea. And I left and I didn't think anything would happen. And when I got the email, he was like, do you want to come back and talk about it? I was like, so really, thank you very much for hearing me and for allowing me to help students like Lori and Anthony and hopefully future generations. And thank you to Crystal Meyer as well for helping us with the grant, because it's a big deal. It's a big deal to have students in a 2-year school interact with other students on a daily basis. And so I just appreciate you really hearing me. So thank you.